Caught you. Welcome. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Welcome, everybody. Episode 40 of Two Chaps, Many Cultures here on a wonderful late summer time, I guess, here in the US.
Here in the Northern Hemisphere.
In the Northern Hemisphere. Yeah.
Happy Friday, everybody. Shabbat Shalom, and whatever greeting you prefer on a Friday. It is Two Chaps, Many Cultures, and my mic is further away from me than it usually is because you see I'm at a different space. It looks totally weird. And maybe I sound a little weird, so I'm bringing the microphone a little bit closer. How's that? Ha ha.
It's very, very radio-like. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And how are you, mate? Good week?
I'm shocked. I'm really shocked that you would approach this topic. Really, really, Brett.
Well, I know that you have certain views on the topic of culture shock, but it just happened to come up again yesterday. I think we as people who teach the work that we do with people that move all around the world, we sometimes are confronted with the fact that we just throw this term of culture shock at people as a preparatory type of term to say that there is something ahead of you that you might not have encountered before. And
right.
And then there is the question is, so tell me, what is culture shock? People will say that, what's culture shock? I've heard it. What is it?
Yeah.
And so that's basically, it might sound rudimentary, but it actually is a valid thing that has happened. I've got my experience. I my term as culture shock. But I guess simply put it is, when you're in an uncomfortable, most people would define it, when you're in an uncomfortable environment or an unfamiliar environment, such as when you move to a new culture, when you're living in a new culture for an extended period of time, and you're experiencing all the differences, both professionally and socially, that you do become a little bit discombobulated, bit uncoordinated at times, and so that is essentially, I guess, what most people would define it as. But I know you have some different views, so
I think it's the term that got legs over the years, right? Somebody coined it, and I don't know who's to blame or to praise for it. Somebody came up with that term, and it got legs, and people used it, and that's how terminology sticks, because it has some stickiness. It explains something, right? And it's very in your face. It's very it has some dramatic effect, right? So culture shock, that is something drama. And it is also, I would argue, a very Anglo-Saxon way of marketing a certain concept, right? I think you find this quite often, that if you look at the English language terms we use for scientific stuff or for marketing stuff or for ideas, it tends to be very blunt and in your face, and with some oomph, with some pizzazz, with some shock effect. There, I said it. Right. And that is part of an I think an Anglo-Saxon cultural trait of being the squeaky wheel, and being loud, and being seen and heard, and being okay with showing up, and not just showing up, but appearing, right? And many other cultures have a, dare I say, more modest or a less assertive way of presenting themselves, and they may not use the same terminology. In my language, for instance, culture shock is the literal translation, Kulturschock. They use the exact same term. However, I have yet to see it used as much in our context in German literature as it is used in English language. So the reason why I'm struggling a little bit with the term is because of the term shock. I understand the concept. It's supposed to rattle people. Say, hey, wake up, there's going to be something that's not going to be nice for you, or there's a potential of things that you may not like. My friend Pellegrino Riccardi, who's British Italian and now living in Norway, he's living the intercultural life himself. He uses the trifecta: uncommon, unfamiliar, and uncomfortable. So those are the things that will come at you. It will be uncommon or unknown to you at first. It will be unfamiliar, and some of it you may not like. Is it shocking, though, is my question. What is shock? How would you define shock? To me, shock is something that comes from the medical field, from trauma research, from something that is such a strong impact that it shatters your core, that it really doesn't let you just pivot. It knocks you over and knocks you out for a while, and it will take a while for you to recover and come back the same person. You may never come back the same person from a shock. A shock is a heart attack. A shock is being a part of a traffic accident. A shock is losing a family member. A shock is having a stroke and trying to come back from everything that entails. To me, that is what the term shock describes. It's a deep. It goes at your core existence, and it throws into question: is your core existence going to continue after this? Now, is every experience of entering a different culture, a different set of normals, a different set of behaviors, is that truly that? Does it really shock you at the core? Or is it just that you won't find your favorite food, that the Vegemite that you get in the US isn't as fresh as the one you get at home, or that I can get my German bratwurst and my pretzels and my beer? I'm oversimplifying, but is that truly shocking? Is it shocking to see people in the United States wearing their guns openly, which they don't do in Europe? Do I find that shocking, or do I just find that irritating? So I think the words that we use create some of the meaning. So that's why I'm a bit at odds with the term shock, because if it's truly shocking that you have to wear, as a woman, you have to dress differently because now you find yourself in a conservative Muslim environment, if that is a shock to you, then maybe your preparation was a bit off, or you went into that experience with the wrong expectations. And maybe if that rattles your core values, then maybe we need to talk about a little more than just a cultural transition. So I could go on for an hour about this, because it really, I'm going to be honest, it bothers me. I don't think shock is the appropriate term. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, because I've had experience in this and doing it, and I tell people, and it surprises people, because I came to what would essentially be pretty, to some people's eyes, a comfortable move coming from my country to the US, where they spoke English and I thought everything was the same. I would actually describe some of that taking place. It was a deep shock for me, and it was an intangible shock. It was something that was under the surface, something that I couldn't put my finger on, as far as different language, completely different food, although that was certainly part of it. But I actually do describe it a little bit of an impactful time where I can measure the person that I was before and the person that I was after as very different people.
Okay.
I approach relationships differently. I approach business differently. I approach, and of course, this is why I do the work I do, and I find it so fascinating now, because I get to explain this. But I do agree with you that it's probably, the term shock is, yes, it's meant to instill a fear response, to say, okay, I really need to pay attention to this. And I would argue that you probably do. You probably need to prepare yourself for it. But it can be a positive thing. It can be a growth. So that's why Simon Sinek says, nothing happens unless you're uncomfortable. That's where you're hyper aware. Your antennas are up. You're finally in a different situation where you're being asked to stretch and move outside of your comfort zone. And so a lot of learning comes with it. And so to prepare people, it's more like saying, embrace it, right? It will happen anyway, to a certain degree, whatever your personal resilience is to it. But embrace it and move through, ride the wave, the ups and downs, for whatever they are, and use them as a real learning experience. Yeah.
Now, here's my question though. If the term shock is supposed to instill fear or the anticipation of pain, are we not alarming our reptilian part of the brain? I forgot what it's called. Is it the limbic, or it's our very primal part of our brain that decides probably only a handful of things, if that at all. So it's either fight or flight. It's either breathe or die. It's either engage or run away. So if we're engaging that part of our brain, aren't we triggering our gut reflex and our non-Homo sapiens brain, our neocortex that has the ability to distinguish between, hey, this is different. I may not like this, but let me analyze it before I jump to a conclusion, right? So I'm not sure. I'm not a psychologist or a neuroscientist. I'm just curious. Is it smart to alarm that part of our brain that does the knee-jerk reaction, or would it be smarter to bypass that and say, yeah, let's not be shocked. Let's not go into this with the expectation of either excellent or catastrophic. Let's go into it with, hey, what could this possibly be? I'm curious.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so the amygdala, which you talk about, obviously, is what I've kind of been reading about, and that is obviously that fear or flight. I don't think that we can negate that completely. I think it always happens. It happens to me, but it is that ability to actually recognize when that happens, how impactful that can be, and say, then, as you say, go, move it into your executive function and think rationally and start to question, start to be curious, about what it is about the action, what it is about the behavior of other people or the situation that is causing that response. And then saying, but maybe there's some real learning here. Maybe this is going to be more fascinating than I think that I think it's going to be. So I think it's complicated, and of course I'm the same. I'm no scientist, anything like that. So it is hard to.
It is. I think at least it's a sliding scale, right? And I like Sue's comment that I'm going to bring up here. And by the way, this is live, as you can tell. And I'm going to ask a live question because there's no other way for me to do it. I don't know if you guys still see me moving around, because I see Brett's face frozen up, but that just might be on my end. So. Here's Sue Shinamaya's comment that she also prefers the term cultural surprise or adjustment or transition over the shock. But she's also right by saying it can feel like a shock to some people, just like Brett said earlier, being shaken at one's foundation. So we're not saying it's either one or the other, that you need to drop the term culture shock or that you will be misled by that term. That's not what's going on. We simply want to make sure that you are aware of the fact that if you encounter something that you find uncomfortable, you have a choice. You have a choice whether you want to make that mean shock or whether you want to make them, hey, this is new to me. What could be behind this, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so now I'm seeing my friend Brett making all sorts of stuff in his ends of the. See, our studio complex is being renovated, if you haven't heard yet. So there's sounds in the background because there's contractors in the house. We're getting soundproof walls now, and we have hundreds of volunteers helping us with this in our Two Chaps Many Cultures headquarters, the downtown tower, and Brett is playing some tricks on us because he's hiding behind some black curtains and black walls. So don't be shocked.
Can you still hear me though?
We can hear you fine. It's shocking to hear you that clearly without seeing you.
That's right. For some reason, it is completely yes, it's completely gone blank. I don't know what's happened to my camera. I'm behind the curtain, secretly behind. So I'm not going to. We're not going to play with it too much. But anyway, I will just say that it's. I agree with Sue. This is great. Those terminologies that we can possibly adapt to, and it's certainly adapted to the clients that we've had, and their past experiences and reflections on what they've gone through in terms of their experience of being in unfamiliar territory, unfamiliar locations, unfamiliar settings. All of that is valid. And I think for the very definition of it, culture shock has become so ubiquitous. It is really what people bring to us. It's what people say. And so, I think we will work with it. The black curtains. See what the studio is? Yeah,
it
it's
worked.
under construction. Just because we're under construction doesn't mean we have to stop production. That's the main thing.
The show must go on. First rule of entertainment: no matter who is shocked in the audience, no matter who falls over with a heart attack, the show must go on. So keep the tape rolling. That's what we're doing. And I think Brett's camera is back in action. That is awesome.
Back in action.
That's how that goes. So what we would love to read from you or hear from you is comments about how you experienced something that was in fact shocking, or that came close to the experience of being rattled to your core. I could think of a few experiences like that. Actually, one of them is ongoing. As someone who is an immigrant to the United States, my ongoing experience that comes close to a shock is how ununified U.S. society is dealing with its inequities and its injustices, and also how easily manipulated some portions of the population can be, and be misguided into, I think misguided, that's my personal judgment, misguided into certain belief worlds or realms. So that is a bit, I wouldn't say shocking. It doesn't surprise me anymore because I've gotten used to it. But initially that was something that I was very confused by, and I continue to struggle with coming to terms with that. So a shock doesn't have to be a quick one-time impact. That could be something that's stripping on you over time, and it leaves a residual effect. So whatever it was in your case, we'd love to read that in the comments. Feel free to shout that out, or even better yet, if you think this is too much to type in a comment, send us a note. Here is, you see underneath in the scroll bar, you see how you get in touch with us, and send us a note, and we might just invite you on the program to talk about it. That would be a lovely conversation that I would like to have. Don't you agree, Brett?
Absolutely. The more the better. The more the better.
The more the better.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't want to listen to us all the time. We get boring.
Where did you put the black curtain? Where did you move it to? Did you put it to the one side or the other side?
Yeah, this side. Behind you.
Okay. All right. Okay, behind me. All right. Okay.
Oh, man. Good fun. Live. This is what live, but live TV used to be actually a real thing. I don't know how it used to be a real thing in the US, but in Australia, live TV, that's how a lot of TV was done. People got on camera and they just winged it, right? And whatever happened, and it made for some really wonderful moments. Now we're in, speaking about uncomfortable situations, right? Being in a place where you're completely discombobulated, and when things go wrong, do you just in Australia we call them drop your lollies, right? Drop your candy, drop your bag of candy and just walk away, or do you march on? And I look back. I actually do like looking back at some of those videos of where early TV was live, and it was just it was kind of scripted, but it was unscripted, and things went wrong. Now we're in this kind of like everything is so produced. Even reality TV is scripted,
rehearsed.
And I kind of think maybe that kind of gives us as a society now a false sense of security, that everything is always going to be the same and everything you can trust it and all that kind of stuff. Right. And then when we are forced to go outside our comfort zone, this becomes even more of a shock. I don't know. Right. Maybe.
Well, they weren't live, I believe, but if you look at the early Gary Vaynerchuk videos, the guy, like him or hate him, doesn't matter, but you would agree that he has made some dent with his work, and his early videos, they were terrible. I mean, yeah. He even encourages people to look at his early videos for people who are afraid to go on camera, or who think, oh, this will be uncomfortable. I'll be shocked if the black curtain is drawn on me and I don't know what to do. Well, look at those early Gary Vaynerchuk videos and you'll recognize how terrible he was. So none of us will be good at the beginning. I mean, we're just getting out of our diapers here, Brett and I. We're still practicing with us. It is what it is.
We're in the 40 episodes. I think I'm pretty proud of that, actually. Just
so am I. Yeah,
we're going to say it every week, but good fun. All right. Well,
I like what we do here.
Thanks for joining, Sue and Barbara. I was on Barbara's great. I do encourage you to go back and find Barbara's. Maybe we should put that somewhere in the comments. But Barbara's discussion this morning about the virtual space, our virtual hero, Barbara.
Which reminds me, I think I should call you up, Barbara. It's time for you to come on the program. Don't be chicken.
That's right. I did send a message. But we're waiting for a response. Love us.
Same is true for Sue, by the way. There's a bunch of people out there. You be afraid. We will come shock you. We will shock you into the light. We will shock you into the light. All right. You'll. All right. Happy weekend, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Be safe. And see you back Monday.
See you Monday. Bye.